I get a little concerned because, sure, we have technology that can allow us to mix and match a number of different items to create these custom bundles or custom kits. But what we're losing here is all the content necessary to make it inbound marketing really effective.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The B2B companies have needs for e-commerce functionality such as catalog management, saving of cards, and complex product variants. But do catalog management needs vary even among B2B companies? While there are solutions that can promise catalog management, there are very few solutions in the market that have gone as far as decoupling these three completely. This is where Elastic Path lives to its name in providing true elasticity to headless experiences. But how does it compare with other headless platforms such as commercetools and Spryker? In today's episode, we invited a panel of cross-functional experts for a live interview on LinkedIn who brings significant expertise to discuss Elastic Path capabilities. We discussed its unique product and data model that allows it to create fluid catalog and pricing bundles for the enterprises with complex channels and product offerings. Finally, we discussed the pros and cons of their architecture and compared it with other e-commerce platforms in the market. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is part of our e-commerce series for which we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick one technology or the solution from the e-commerce world and we review that independently. For today, we are going to be talking about one of the other exciting headless vendor, which is the Elastic Path. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, let's finish off our intros. I'm going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, I'm Sam Gupta, principal consultant at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP commerce digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I am going to move to Robert for his intro.
Hi, I'm Robert Brown. I've been in e-commerce for 20 years. I help companies with their strategy and execution to improve their bottom line.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Robert. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, if you guys have any questions or comments, post them into the comment box. We typically try to cover them towards the tail end of the show. If you run out of time, we'll make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, Robert, I'm actually going to give you a quick rundown of where Elastic Path fits in the value chain, where they are in their journey. And then I can, if you have any sort of commentary there from your research, we can discuss that. And then finally, we'll go through these slides. So overall, from the Elastic Path perspective, they are slightly more modern headless vendor. My perception of their positioning is going to be they compete head to head with vendors such as your commercetools. Now, when we reviewed commercetools, my understanding of their offering, they were trying to position them as more of the best of breed the way they are positioning in the market. But then they ended up acquiring the CMS as well. I believe the name is Frontastic. So they ended up acquiring that. So obviously now they are trying to figure out that, you know what, best of breed could be way too much just because you are going to have too many solutions. So maybe it's better that we sort of take the middle ground that some of the other vendors were taking to begin with. And I believe Elastic Path is sort of in between as well. So when I look at the commerce tools functionality, okay, the way they come across and the way, in fact, Spryker is even more technical in my mind. The way they talk, the way their marketing positioning is. Commerce tools is also very technical solution in general. The way they approach their marketing, I did not see a ton of functionality, to be honest. Overall, from the B2B feature perspective, and if you have to build all of those B2B features, then obviously you are looking for a lot more heavier lift when you are going to be comparing B2B features of, for example, any of the head platform. They typically have far deeper functionality that are going to be built as part of the data model. Now, some people might argue that, you know what, I want to go full blown custom. I don't want to be limited because of the head. And that's the reason why I am exploring these platforms. Now, when you look at the Elastic Path, they are sort of in between. They are providing a lot of functionality. So when we are going to be looking at their screens, the way their functionality is, it's sort of in the middle. Meaning they are providing a lot of B2B features that you are going to find in solutions such as your SAP Hybris is like the top B2B solution in my mind because they have a lot of different features in that solution. Then I believe we found those features in Magento. Magento is very well developed overall from the B2B feature perspective. The way their data model is, the way their object model is, that's very friendly to any of the B2B scenarios. So now what Elastic Path has done overall from their data model perspective, I think it seems to be inspired by a lot of different B2B vendors. So one of the best thing that Elastic Path has done is they have decoupled your categories, the product model, as well as pricing. So what that means is you can create unlimited number of catalogs with any sort of permutation combinations. That may be a limiting factor with a lot of different solutions that we have, especially the ones that are going to have head. Even the headless ones, I would think that when you are going to get into the real complexity of unlimited catalogs, in some industries, when you are going to be Fortune 100, 500, when you are going to have, let's say, 20, 30,000 suppliers, and then you need to probably manage the catalog for each of their divisions, then it becomes very complex overall, the way the whole process works. The other things that I have noticed overall from the Elasticsearch perspective, they are also very good at the way they are approaching their data model from the variant perspective, which has far deeper depth than any of the other platforms that we have seen. Overall, I think they seem to have roughly 200 customers, and that's my understanding of commercetools at this point of time, because these guys are playing in the enterprise market, so each of them are probably going to have 200-300 customers, even though their valuation is billions and billions of dollars. So I will pause there. Robert, do you have any commentary?
Yeah, so I think this is really the important time for companies to really understand, and I say this every week, and I think it's just as important now. You really have to understand what your differentiating factor is and understand really what you're trying to achieve before you start going and looking for a tool. I have seen, unfortunately, a number of organizations just say, get me the best in breed without understanding really what you're trying to achieve. And it's, given the number of players, it's really difficult to say, give me the best in breed. The best in breed for what, right? So if we look at what Elastipath has in terms of customers, they've got Pella Windows, they've got Remarkable, they've got Hobie, which is like sailboats and stand-up paddleboards. They've got manufacturing, Goodman. They've got consumer products. They've got biotech. They've got hospitality. They've got Carnival. They've got Consumer Reports, Intuit, Jenny Craig. Let's see who else. Big names. Yeah, I mean, those are the really, really, really big names. And so that's a pretty diverse set of customer types that find this platform perfectly acceptable. So does it mean that this is going to be the right fit for every enterprise level entity? No, it's not. For example, one of the things that they use is they are really integrated with Stripe in terms of payments.
Yeah. Some
of the other platforms are completely open and let you bring whomever you want. Of course, because they're headless, you could bring in whomever you wanted, but that's who they've chosen to partner with. So Stripe is making a killing. I think we need to cover them at some point.
Yeah, so very interesting. So are you suggesting that, the only payment platform that you can use with Elastic Path is going to be Stripe?
No, I'm not suggesting that. But what they are saying is that's one of their solutions. That is their payment. The Elastic Path payment solution is Stripe. So if you want to integrate your own, it's not an out-of-the-box solution for them.
Interesting. Okay, so we are probably going to go over these slides as well, and I don't know if I have any sort of references there of the payment providers, but that was not my understanding. So thank you so much for bringing that. That's a very interesting point. Robert, anything else?
No, that's it for right now.
Okay. Amazing. So let's go over the slides here. So overall, from the Elastic Path perspective, they are saying Elastic Path is a headless commerce system allowing template-less e-commerce to be integrated as middleware into enterprise ERP system. And I like the way everybody sort of throws the ERP word there, that everybody's sort of trying to integrate with ERP, which is great. Obviously, you need the integration, you need that architectural clarity in terms of what is going to be the scope of your e-commerce versus your ERP. So glad that they have at least written that. Now they are saying the system is API based and is specifically targeted towards enterprise level organization. Elastic Path is a private company based in Vancouver, Canada. Okay, they have been named as the visionary by Gartner, I guess, in 2020. And I think we have already covered this. Some of the clients that we did not cover when you were talking, Robert, I guess they have Symantec as well, which is very interesting. And my understanding of their offering was they are more into tech, media, telco. That was my understanding. But I think you had a lot of clients there for manufacturing and the consumer goods as well. Here, when I look at Wikipedia, they are saying Symantec, Chime Incorporation, Virgin Media, LVMH. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that. DeVry, SAS is a. Go ahead, Robert.
LVMH is consumer goods.
Okay, so they are consumer goods.
Like handbags.
Okay. So seems like, but overarching picture, if I look at the 10 logos here, half of them, or maybe 8 of them are really from the tech and media. And that was my understanding of their play, because, that's where you need a lot of different cataloging. Then you are going to have very complex offerings. That's where your product mix is going to be very complex as well. So, okay. So they are also saying that they are Java e-commerce platform. And, this is also Java based. So I don't know how people are going to perceive this, whether now this will fall under legacy, because in my mind, I think this is comparable with your SAP Hybris, because they can do your headless right now. If you think about it, even HCL Commerce backend is still going to be Java, but you can do all of those workflows. In fact, when you are going to be looking at the demo videos of your HCL Commerce at this point of time, they are very similar to what these guys are trying to do from their experience perspective. The only difference that I could see is that, you can create custom fields and the custom attributes on your API, which I could not see with HCL. I don't know if that is possible. Sometimes that could be very restricting. In some data models, especially if you are using enterprise grade data models, it might not be as easy to create those custom fields. But when I look at the custom fields overall workflow, to be honest, when you are trying to override the order status, it's probably going to be very hard in general, even if these guys are offering, custom field just for the sake of it. But I think when you are going to be consuming that, it's not going to be as natural. In my mind, and the way their screens are laid out, custom field is sort of separate the way custom fields work in any other platform. It's not really sort of inbuilt extension model where you are literally overwriting the whole object. Okay, this was your old order. Now this is your new order. This is going to be your new screen. That's not how the custom field is laid out. So I think, they are fairly even overall in terms of their capabilities, even though these guys are calling themselves as the newer headless platform. But if the underlying language is going to be Java, then I don't know. Let me see. You are fairly comparable with Hybris at this point of time, or eCommerce in my mind. Okay, some more comments here. So I think you have already mentioned these logos, Robert, when you were describing.
Yep.
And some more commentary here. They are saying solution born natively as headless microservices, which was acquired by Elastic Path in January 2020. So this one, they are trying to describe this solution only. They are trying to describe the Driscoll held a variety of marketing products. So they are talking about the role of the executive here who joined. So the Driscoll, I guess, came from Demandware. And Robert, if you remember, I think there was a little bit of split there when Demandware was sold to Salesforce. So one of the executive, I believe, started the founder, I guess, started Newstore, which is the another mobile-centric headless platform that is also very hot. And the other executive, I guess, came here with Elastic Path. So there is a little split there. But I think the philosophy, the foundation is probably going to come from the same team. Obviously, Demandware was one of the most exciting platform out there. Here, they are trying to describe some of the things that I found very exciting here that I could not see in any other platform personally. Is they are saying create dynamic bundles, thousands of variations, and custom product configurator. I think that's very unique. Even the most capabilities that I could found personally when it comes to your dynamic bundling or the cataloging, I think Adobe Commerce or the Magento seems to have the most comprehensive capability overall when it comes to creating these catalogs, assigning it to appropriate rules, having that hierarchy, having the organizational hierarchy, setting the pricing as per the workflow. Here, I think you are going to have a little flexibility overall in terms of the pricing because your object model is not necessarily tight. It's very fluid. That's their claim as well. So I think you are going to get some experience there. Robert, go ahead.
So whenever I hear somebody in the world of PIM and DAM start talking about creating dynamic configurations, I get a little concerned because, sure, we have technology that can allow us to mix and match a number of different items to create these custom bundles or custom kits. But what we're losing here when we do that is all the content necessary to make it inbound marketing really effective, if you follow me, right? So, okay, I can say, looks like John is really interested in this bundle. We're going to go we know that product A and product M seem to be his interest. We will pull them together and offer him this possibly just unique price.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that's a one-off specifically for that customer. It's not necessarily publishing for the general public consumption this new AM configuration, nor is it adjusting the content to specifically talk about why this combination of these two is interesting and unique and a customer should potentially consider it. Does that make sense?
It does. Honestly speaking, I think there are some layers to it. So when you talk about the dynamic functionality or the programmable PIM and DAM functionality, there are going to be some other advantages as well. It's not just the custom bundle. So custom bundle, I can see your point where you are going with that. You are sort of, trying to challenge the value of one-off scenario where you are selling this bundle, then you are probably going to have control issues from the finance perspective as well. Sure, there could be some value, but I mean, you are probably getting into the whole configurator scenario. Why are you not solving this problem by having some sort of, configurable bundle as opposed to doing it in this way where you are creating the unique bundle for a customer? But I guess, there are other layers as well. So in case of configurator, you are sort of assuming that the customer is already there with you who is trying to interact with the product. But in this particular case, when you look at the the custom product configurator, when you are sort of trying to pull it off, I think you are trying to map with the whole customer journey as well. It's not just the place where you are sort of shopping. That's one point. But then you have the entire customer journey that has to be mapped, that has to be unique as well based on the custom bundle. I don't know if I'm making sense. So there is a little length there, that marketers are going to be excited about that part, because obviously once you have the customer, you can do whatever you want. But they are more interested in, okay, what is happening before that?
Right. So what I'm saying, because I don't have the details on it, what I'm saying is it could be a little bit of talking about, words du jour.
Yeah.
Go. So the marketing speak is trying to make it sound better than it really is. That could be it. But if we could see the detail on how they're doing it and what they're able to achieve and what they aren't, that would be really interesting, so we could actually compare that, because I know that I have seen this poorly done.
Yeah.
And it makes it really difficult to track inventory, SKU velocity when you're dynamically just throwing these together.
Completely agree. And, the assumption is going to be that you are probably not going to have a SKU. I mean, if you're creating a SKU, on the fly, then you are probably going to have a lot of challenges, because then you are looking at a million SKU. So the assumption is going to be the bundle that you are creating, that's not necessarily a SKU as such. It's still going to be tied to your underlying products. You are simply trying to create a bundle to be able to sell to a customer, because that's the kind of, bundle that they are looking for from the configurability perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so what I'm saying here is I'm wondering if it's truly a dynamic bundle, or if it's just a sales functionality that allows the customer to create a special on the fly.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a real SKU. Otherwise, you are going to run into a lot of challenges, to be honest. Okay, so then we are talking about, okay, how are you going to communicate that to your production? Okay, so we are opening a lot of worms there. So my understanding is that it's really a configurator experience. The way configurator experience works, Robert, is, okay, you are selecting a bunch of options, but underneath you don't necessarily create a SKU. A SKU is going to be a template where you can have millions and millions of combinations. Okay, you can choose whatever your combinations are, but as such, you don't create that part in your e-commerce system or the ERP system. Otherwise, then you are going to run into like a million SKU. Who's going to maintain that? So that's why you have the configurator experience. And that's why I am trying to relate it with the configurator experience. The only difference in the configurator experience versus what they are trying to do here is, in the configurator as well, you have that fixed experience, because you still have to predict the combinations. In this particular case, you are not necessarily predicting, you're still combining, based on algorithm, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So interesting point. Thank you so much, Robert, for that. So here they are saying, product merchandising. In some industries, I can see a lot of value with this. And that's why I was thinking that in media, telco, when you are going to have all of these, cell phone offers or the mobile offers, that's where the real complexity is, the way consumers behave, because they are going to be trying a lot of different combinations. Sometimes you are trying to predict, okay, who's going to buy what. So I think they have a lot of complexity as opposed to, let's say, product-based organizations. In my experience, product-based organizations, they don't really get into, okay, the sort of the bundling, right? Let me see, if I'm buying a coffee mug, it's not that I will be buying coffee mug with another product with it. Sure, if I'm going to get a discount, I'll get it. But as such, the bundling does not add as much value as it is going to be when you are going to be looking at industries such as media and telco. And that's why if you look at the whole subscription-based business model, okay, it's very prevalent in telco and media. Subscription-based model is not as successful in your product-centric industries. And that's why I was thinking that, Elastic Path is more geared towards the media telco tech, because that's where they are going to have a lot of different combinations, variations. The channels are very complex as well in general, in terms of pricing.
Yeah, I can tell you that, in the media, it is pretty, for those of you that have multiple kids at home and you have multiple subscriptions.
Yeah.
So it gets confusing as to which platform have you purchased the subscription to a particular channel through, and when is it good through, and which level do you get? Do you get the plain with commercial, or do you get the plain, no commercial? And is it through Hulu, or is it through Amazon, or is it through, what is the bundle that you're getting?
Yeah.
And it makes the old cable company bundles look like child's play.
Exactly. And maybe you have some insights from your experience of hospitality as well as insurance. In my mind, if you look at the bundling of insurance, oh my goodness, it's a nightmare.
It is.
Okay, that is probably the most complex bundling ever, right?
It is. So, in the insurance markets, you have to rate the consumer themselves. You have to rate the properties that they have, and then you have to rate, so it's the different types of assets that you're putting there together. And then, so are we only getting their home? Are we getting their home and their autos? So then we're going to bundle those together. How many autos do they have? What's the risk assessment of their family?
Yeah.
Do we get multiple homes? Do we get a vacation home? Do we have a boat? Do we have a car? Do we have an umbrella policy? It gets very complex very quickly.
Yeah, could not agree more. So let's make some more progress here with respect to slides, and then we can take some more comments. So here, I like the way product merchandising is covered here. They are saying organize product into unlimited hierarchies, and product merchandising is where I think the major play is. If you talk to a merchandiser, they just like to have a lot of customizability from everywhere. Okay, they want to be extremely creative. Whether you talk about fashion, whether you talk about any other merchandising, those people want to get as much data as possible to see where the product is going to sell, because that's their art, right? They are trying to design that. So that's where I think this product is going to be really handy for them, and they are definitely going to appreciate that fluidness in the data model to be able to create those unlimited hierarchies. It says assign multiple price books to products, which is also very unique. I think you can probably do it in Adobe as well, but you are probably going to run into scenarios where there will be limitations because the data model is very integrated, very tight. So it might not be as fluid because your product has price. Okay, it's not that your product and pricing are completely separate and then you can mix and match and do whatever you want. So yes, there is the real advantage, the way these guys have designed their data model.
This data model probably fits Carnival very, very well.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the pricing books that hospitality has,
yeah,
there is hundreds of prices for a single property.
I know.
Or say a single room, right? So you've got AARP, AAA, American Express Platinum, American Express Titanium. Are you a Chase? And the list goes on. And being able to keep track of which price goes with which affinity group
exactly
gets pretty complicated sometimes.
Yeah, and look at the number of channel partners that these companies are going to have. There are going to be like millions. I mean, a manufacturer is never going to have as many channel partners, to be honest. And then, the number of hierarchies that you are going to have because they can keep selling to their partners. So travel gets very expensive. Insurance gets very expensive in my mind.
Yeah, one of the ones that I liked in here was looking at the customers. It was Hobie. So Hobie has buy online and pick up nearby nearby in just 3 months. So they were able to implement that with this system pretty quickly. And that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Because if you think about be able to keep track of the manufacturer's inventory once it's reached the retailer has to have a pretty good integration so you know what that sales channel looks like. So Hobie has done a really good job to be able to effectively do that. I know that Louis Vuitton, LVMH, they kind of have a problem with that because when you go to their site and you're looking for, say, Hennessy, right? So you could actually tentatively, or conceptually, you should be able to look for a specific type of Hennessy, and it should be able to tell you exactly what retailer has it near you. Well, they can tell you who ordered it, when it was shipped, but that retailer, because it's sometimes a local mom and pop, is not going to be fully integrated, so they don't know whether they've sold out or not. So you could drive over there, and it's like, oh, they don't have it. Bad customer experience.
Yeah, could not agree more. And it gets really complex and challenging. It's not easy to implement those business models at all, even though a lot of people talk, hey, I want to go omni-channel. They don't even understand what omni-channel really is, to be honest, and how complex that could get overall when you look at the every order flow that we are talking about. And it's not just the order placement. You are also talking about returns, replacement, exchanges, and when you are going to be in industries such as apparel. Okay, so it's not that, okay, do you have an iPhone 6? It's going to be, okay, do you have this color, this style? It gets really complex.
Yeah, preach. Absolutely preach. My big soapbox is people appropriating the term omni-channel when in fact they
Yeah,
mean multi-channel.
exactly. Exactly. All right. So let's do some more comments here. So here it says compose hierarchies and price books into catalogs without limits. Assign rules to catalogs so that they are dynamically surfaced to the right customers. Then they are saying and I think we have seen these terms when we were looking at Shopify. That's my recollection that they were talking about product launches, pop up shops, flash sales. I don't know if Shopify can really pull off the volume. If you're looking at the real enterprise grade workload, I don't know how many platforms can really pull off that, because we are looking at like millions and millions of hits, and that's where the I sort of like the pitch about commercetools when they talk about this whole microservices driven architecture and decoupling all of your services, including your data model. So, in a way, that's helpful when you are looking at that kind of workload, because what you can do is when you are going to be decoupling, you can individually scale them as you like, as opposed to sort of scaling them as one go, because that's going to be probably wastage of resources, and then it's going to be really expensive. Here, what you are talking about, okay, if people are searching a lot more, then the only thing you are scaling is your search function. You are not scaling your entire e-commerce site. So that's where, in my mind, the composability is very important for these enterprise grade workloads. Then it says build in merchandise, thousands of child variants. That is also very unique functionality that I have personally not seen anywhere else. I don't know. I cannot recall if any industries I have personally seen where you are going to require the child variants, but I can see the possibility. Okay, because the variants, when you get into the complex workflows of these variants, the more fluid your structure is, the easier it is going to be to manage. Because sometimes I have seen like crazy amount of attributes. We are talking about thousands and thousands, and if you don't have any sort of hierarchy in that, it becomes very unmanageable. It says shop the look room experiences inventory of one use cases like re-commerce. I don't think anybody else has used the term re-commerce in their marketing material. Sale pricing for single variants. I don't know if anybody is going to use that. Maybe some industries have some use case for that. And they have also mentioned the merchandising by color and size. This is going to be the most fluid platform if you are going to be probably in the fashion business. So they are saying test out pricing based on geo instead of running a regional promo. So again, they can go very specific, which I personally like, to be honest. The way the promotion data model is, it's very unique. And then they are saying create unique pricing per variation or experience, support businesses where each country has their own. By the way, the taxation, okay? So I don't think anybody has really digged into the taxation piece. In my mind, even the taxation gets very complex when you are talking about countries such as Mexico, India, Brazil, Germany. They are going to have very unique layers of taxation. You are looking at least two or three layers of the taxation. In fact, Canada has at least two layers of VAT. So again, your taxation model has to be fluid. Here they are talking about they can support a lot more countries. I think the other e-commerce platform, they might fall short overall in their data model for taxation. So again, these guys have really paid attention to the data model, and this is a data model driven platform, which is what I personally like to see in a platform.
Well, and it's here that the multi-country, multilingual site, suddenly you start to really appreciate the variation capability, because while you may have one product, you're going to have, the product information management system, PIM, is going to have multiple variants of that same product to be able to support all those languages. And what the representation is expected for those local markets. So the way the Chinese market may expect something, they're going to probably expect more red in the representation as other countries might, because red being, a good color for them.
Yeah, I'll make just one comment there. So I think a lot of platforms can do the language piece of the product model, but doing the taxes are always changing. Okay, so you need a lot of fluidity. So what you can support as of today, the regulations may change tomorrow. For example, Mexico transformed their taxes completely overnight. So what you could do yesterday, now if you have to accommodate this tax model, okay, so you are going to have a lot of fun there if your data model does not support that fluidity. Language, it's not going to change. I mean, what people are referring today, probably they are probably going to be using the same term in the next 50 years, right? So the taxation, I think that's where the trick is. So that's where, I guess, if you're going to be really global company where you are selling in multiple countries, pay attention to taxes.
Yep. This is something that was typically hand coded for the larger enterprise companies. So now having it in a tool that handles it is a little bit different.
Exactly. Great points, Robert. So here, some more comments here. Overall, from the layout perspective, the product is going to appear very similar, whether you are going to be looking at Shopify or Elastic Path. Again, you need the technical architects to be able to describe the experience. I mean, the people who understand data model and the software engineering to be able to understand the difference between Elastic Path versus Shopify versus BigCommerce. But overall, from the UI perspective, all of the platforms are probably going to appear very similar in general. But this is the sort of the catalog composer experience where they are saying industries only completely decoupled architecture where products, hierarchies, and prices are all separate services. So they are not only saying that they are separate from data model perspective, they are individually deployable, which is a big deal overall. Now, I can see a lot of different integration challenges, to be honest, okay? But I still like the concept, because you probably need that from the business perspective. So I can see some value, but overall from the if you look at the deployment architecture, I think there could be some challenges overall. How these services are going to be talking to each other when you're going to be scaling, there could be a little fun there. But I do like the composability aspect of this particular feature. Okay, Robert, comment? Do you have comment?
No.
Okay, good. So here, this is how the pricing looks overall in terms of the configurability. It's very configurable. Now, how you are going to describe that? It could be harder. You are looking at many different groups. You might see that in many different platforms. But again, here you are talking about far more layers overall in terms of the kind of layers you might be able to capture when you are going to have many different channels and their user groups, and they are going to require very different pricing for each of the product, for each of the catalog, for each of the categories. That's where the real play is in terms of the amount of customization that you can do here. They have very deep layers of volume and sales pricing as well. And typically you are going to find these features in ERPs. Most ERPs, they have very deep pricing and discounting functionality. So what they have done, they have really inspired this from the ERP world. Now, if Phil were here, we would probably argue, okay, who holds pricing, whether it is going to be e-commerce versus your ERP. But when you are looking at creation of catalog, releasing of catalog, sharing the catalog with your channel partners, it would probably make sense to keep that in your e-commerce, because I don't think ERP systems are really designed for that shareability of the catalog. So it has to reside inside e-commerce from the architecture perspective. Any comments, Robert?
I was just thinking, also, the ERP isn't designed for the number of transactions at the pace of e-commerce.
Well, so that's a very interesting comment.
Yep.
So overall, from the transaction perspective, I think the ERP systems are probably going to be able to handle far higher load of transaction because obviously they are designed for massive workload, right? So I don't know where that comment is coming from, because if you look at the overall database, right, the database is going to be far superior with your ERP system. For example, let's say if you look at the SAP great solutions, they are probably going to have HANA. None of the e-commerce solutions have, HANA capability at this point of time. So it's really designed for that transactional processing. In fact, the transaction depth is going to be far deeper with the ERP systems overall from the transaction perspective as well as from the load handling perspective. The challenge that I typically see when you are looking at e-commerce experience versus ERP experience, they are probably going to be moving at a very different pace overall in their operation. So that typically is a problem in general in the architecture because you have to decouple those. You can't really have the live connection with your ERP because ERP in general is going to be slower because the amount of work that ERP has to do is going to be overall far higher in terms of the transactional depth. So again, I think the ERP systems can handle the volume, to be honest, but they are probably not comparable, I guess. I mean, that's how I'm going to put it, Robert.
Yeah, and that was my point. You won't have a direct one-to-one from the front end of let's say, your hospitality front end directly back to your ERP. There's going to be a decoupling and sharing of information in a not real-time basis because of the shopping that occurs on the e-commerce side versus the completion of the transaction.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you so much for that. So let's give you some more comments here. So here you are talking about the whole catalog experience. So the whole catalog experience, I think this is going to be very, very hard to replicate inside your ERP because again, they are not really designed for that. Cataloging is a very different process that has to reside inside your e-commerce. So I like the way the workflow is done here. Now, when you look at the headless experience, it's a very similar demo as you are going to find with HCL Commerce. They had done the similar workflows that whatever you could do from UI, you can probably do it from API as well. So I kind of like it. Some people don't really understand what you are trying to do here, but here you are wrapping the whole e-commerce layer inside your API, whether you talk about DEM, PIM, these assets are very, heavy overall in terms of their weight. The kind of objects that you're going to carry. Now, when you look at systems such as ERP, they are not necessarily designed for those heavy objects. If you are going to be putting your CAD files inside your ERP, good luck with that. Okay. So again, it's a very different data model because the data model is very highly relational. It's designed for financial data. It's not really designed for your operational data or marketing data. So marketing data has very different characteristic overall in the way the data works. So here, this API experience is going to be very different from what you are going to get from your ERP, but you are encapsulating the whole layer inside your web services, and that you are calling from multiple channels. You can call this from POS as well. And that's why the experience such as the one that Robert had mentioned is far easier to implement. The only thing you are worrying about in this experience is going to be just your UI, which is going to be your HTML, CSS. You are not necessarily building the actual functionality inside your presentation layer, which is what makes it faster, easier to be able to deploy, to be able to implement. Any comments, Robert?
Nope.
Okay. Here, the promotion is also, I think the promotion, the way the promotion has been done in this particular platform, that's also very layered overall. The way the data model is, it's very fluid in general. Personally, I have not seen this kind of fluidity in any other platform so far, the ones that we have reviewed. And the promo code is, yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Could you break that down? What do you mean by you haven't seen this fluidity in the other platforms that we've reviewed? Because this looks very similar in terms of some of the other platforms we reviewed. It looks kind of standard. So where do you see the differences?
So here's my take on this, Robert, and we can debate this as well. So here, let's say if you look at the overall number of layers here, right? So you are talking about number one, multiple currencies as part of your promotion. So in the other platform, when you are going to look at, let's say Shopify, you are probably going to have the promo, you are going to have buy one, get one free. You might be able to tie that with individual customer group. But then, when you are looking at different currencies, different dollar amounts, and the bundle requirement, as well as you are tying that with your product SKU, the whole permutation and combination, what you can do here is far more compared to what you would be able to do in the other platform. That's where I am coming with this. I don't know if I'm making sense here, Robert.
I don't see the difference because there's always a way to back in to get the promotions that you're trying to look for. So if you're looking at a promotion, you can have a fixed currency amount off, you can have a percentage off, you can have a BOGO, you can have, some number of product and get another product free. And so that can be irrespective of currency. If you're doing percentages, or if you're doing even a fixed amount, then you can just change the promotion to reflect the current currency. So you wouldn't necessarily use the same promo code in Spain that you would in maybe the US.
Exactly. So then you would need to maintain two different promotion codes. So here
but that might also be a good thing because then it makes it easier for you to track where it's actually being used.
Well, so I guess, we need to look at both. Okay, so we need to look at the maintenance as well. So let's say if you're creating the same promo for 50 countries, then you are looking at maintaining in 50 different countries. And that's where the debate of the maintainability of the whole promotion is SKU, I guess, versus, whether you want the analytics as part of that. So here, my understanding is going to be when you are going to be analyzing this data, along with your promotion code, you can layer in your currency on top of that because you have that as part of your data model. Okay, in that you are probably not going to have that. You are going to have just the currency, but you don't have sort of the multiple currency when you are going to be looking at your XML structure. So I guess that's where the data model difference is. Here you are looking at 1-to-n correlation between your promotion and the currency. In the other platform, it's just probably going to be just one currency. That's my take on this, Robert.
Yeah, I'd have to play with it in a test environment to see how that worked out and what kind of reporting they came out with to determine how we would actually be able to figure that out.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so I guess any other comments on promotion, Robert, before we move on? Okay, perfect. Okay, so here, this is the functionality that I was talking about overall in overriding the fields. And this is my personal challenge with a lot of different e-commerce platforms. When you are going to be looking at the workflows of your orders, returns, sometimes, you might require a lot of different statuses. That is not very easy to manage in general when you are going to be communicating this across the platform. So here they are sort of providing the fixed schema that, okay, this is your order, these are the order statuses, but then if you need anything custom, you can probably create the custom field as well, which is not very easy in general in the other e-commerce platform. So here you have far deeper layer, I guess, in terms of customizing that. But when you look at the way they are customizing, it looks strange. I mean, you can create additional field on your web services, but that's just not part of the same object. It's very different experience. So that, I guess, we are probably going to be looking at the next screen. So here we are literally looking at exposing the whole, the field model from the database perspective, where you can specify, okay, this is my newest status on the order, and then you can specify the type. So basically what they are trying to do is they are trying to expose the whole data model, as part of your configuration from the web services perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at most of the ERP systems are probably going to support this. Okay, in the e-commerce world, it's not very common because here you are not only looking at changing the data model, you have to also tie this with your URL slug because this is going to be a URL. So it's very interesting the way this is done.
This is the first one I've seen where they allow us to actually modify the slug at this level.
Exactly. And it's cool concept, Robert, but I can see a lot of issues and I don't know if I'm convinced with the value because if you actually pay attention to the way it is done, if you look at the custom field is very similar experience as your ERP. The custom field is going to be somewhere in the side. It just feel very disjointed. It's not
Well,
part of the same object.
so the issue that I see with this is the concept of slug being automatically created. It was supposed to be as a way to address size, right? The number of products that you have. And so if you're automatically creating a number of different bundles and having a bunch of other data that goes along with it, you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the resources to actually go in and start modifying, overriding slugs on the fly, especially when you get up to 10,000, 100,000, a million SKUs. It's just because you got all the data that goes along with it too. It's an overwhelming task.
So I'm not too sure if they have utilized the whole custom field functionality for the product bundles as well. The workflow that they are trying to demonstrate or the use case that they are trying to demonstrate is related to changing the schema of your object. So what that means is, let's say order status has 5 different statuses and you need 7, 8, 10, depending upon your sales cycle, I guess, right? If you want to modify that, that's typically harder in the other platforms. Here, they are trying to be able to provide that, okay, you can customize any business objects as you like, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you are not necessarily extending the business objects the way you would do it in programming languages, okay? So in programming languages, what you can do is, okay, you don't like my order object, that's okay. Okay, you can override it, you can extend it, you can write the way you want, but that's going to be your object. Now my object is gone because you have already overridden it, right? If you want to extend that, you can probably utilize some of the properties from my object as well. So that's very fluid experience in the programming languages. Here, it's not going to be as fluid because your custom fields are completely separate than your main schema that you have.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the, Robert, I was talking about the custom field. Custom field is not really part of the main workflow, and I'm not even sure what happens to the existing statuses, to be honest. Okay, so existing statuses are also going to be part of your object, but then you have the custom field, which is sort of trying to say, okay, this is your status. So it's just very disjointed experience in my mind, even though the concept is very powerful.
See, this seems like just part of the setup to me. It doesn't, like why are we modifying the status on the fly? We as an organization, we should determine this as part of the setup. This is how our organization is set up. These are the statuses that we want to be able to track because you need to be able to report on them too. You need to be able to report on how many are in status 1, 2, 3, or 4. What is the length of time it takes on average for it to get from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4? How many actually fail? Why do they fail? And so if you're creating a new status on the fly, that kind of makes it difficult to start reporting on that and tracking data, doesn't it?
Just to be clear, I don't think they are doing it on the fly. It is still part of the setup, but that setup itself is very hard with the other platforms, to be honest. When you have to customize, let's say, the order workflow, or it's definitely not on the fly.
Well, no, because if you look at this, at least the way it's represented here and the way I'm taking it is,
okay,
this is the order on April 5th from Andy Dewey. So,
I see. Okay, now I see where you are going with this. Okay, so now you are saying, okay, so this is your order, and now you are trying to enter some sort of new status, which I see where you are going with this.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, fine, but I as somebody in management, that now creates exceptions.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would not do that. If I were implementing this for my own company. So yeah, it's slightly strange. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you so much, Robert, for bringing that. Okay, so now the variation. Okay, we have seen the variation, but I have not seen the child attribute so far, which could be very powerful. I don't know if any industries are going to require the child attributes, but I can see the application So this is very powerful. That is something I have not seen with any other platforms. Any comments, Robert?
I'm digesting it. No comments yet.
Okay, if you think about something, we can discuss that
Yep.
on the next slide as well. Here, this is very similar cart functionality that I could not see in some of the technical platforms. I think Spryker had it. Spryker had far deeper B2B functionality. Commercetool came across as very technical tool. It was primarily geared towards B2C verticals. That's my understanding of that platform. Here we are talking about very thick B2B functionality, and the cart workflow is very common in the B2B space. We have seen this in the case of SAP Hybris. HCL Commerce is more designed towards B2C, so you are not going to see all of this. Then you had this in Spryker. VTEX, again, my mind says that's probably B2C because I could not see this. Magento, B2B, you are going to see this in Magento as well. This is very, very, very similar look and feel of your SAP Hybris. It's exact same. And this is how, your Spryker has done it as well. So, all of them are being very consistent overall from the user experience perspective. This is also the user workflow of B2B. This is also very similar experience as your SAP Hybris Spryker. Some comments. So go ahead, Robert.
It's fine that you've got the cart functionality and you can save a custom name to it. For a customer, a B2B customer who's going to order a number of parts from you and have them delivered. When I look back on the previous examples, a $325,000 order, this at least to me is the level of I would like to call my sales rep and see if because me being a buyer, the buyer is going to be placing these orders, right? Me being the buyer, if I'm placing a $300,000 order, I would automatically start saying, hey, where are my next price breaks? How much more do I need to order? I don't see that functionality here telling me what I need to do to get, more discount, more favorable terms, whatever the case may be.
So my understanding of this workflow is that may not be coming across from the screens, but I think the customizability of the platform will allow you to configure all of those rules based on the buyer persona, and you are going to see all of those price breaks. The other point I'm going to make here is going to be that the reason why companies would like to implement this platform or B2B commerce experience is because they don't want salesperson to be part of the sales cycle, because it's going to be easier for the user. Obviously, if they need to call the salesperson, they can always call, but for the most part, they are trying to automate the customer experience.
Right. And they are. And, we for months have been talking about how complicated the B2B, purchase path can be.
Yeah.
And I, for one, would like to see a flow that actually addresses the pain points and questions I just raised.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think that's going to be more of the visualization. But, based on the data model, I think, these guys should be able to do the path that you are trying to find. It may not be clear from the slides, but I completely agree with you that is going to be part of your B2B workflow. If your platform does not allow you to do that, probably that's not the right platform that you should be going for.
Right. I think what's happening here is the businesses, the ones that I have experience with, and this is in consumer goods, they have not had the right digital teams to implement a great UX to prevent calls to the sales staff because they haven't thought about the exception path. All they've thought about is the happy path, and that's all they've been able to implement, which is what we're kind of seeing there, right? And so if these tools actually start embracing those exception paths and the difficult challenges, I think they'll have a much better time selling into complicated B2B scenarios.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's why I think a lot of people from the community, the people who are influencer in the e-commerce space, they do talk about that B2C platforms are not really designed for B2B. B2B is a very different beast, and you have to make sure. And by the way, MEC, the other point I'm going to make here is going to be the implementation, of B2B is very different. So platform can provide the capability. Sometimes it might be very hard for the users to be able to visualize how it is going to work. So that's where you require a lot of consulting implementation for the B2B workflow. And that's where people like, Robert could be very helpful. So I guess, that's where, since Robert, if you are not able to relate, think of the average user, if they don't have as much experience with data and the configuration, how will they be able to visualize how that is going to be done from the platform?
Exactly. And what they're going to do is they're going to call the salesperson.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah. Okay, Robert, any more closing comments?
Nope.
Okay, amazing. So we can close now. So that's a wrap, guys. And again, if you're looking for this platform, it's a very customizable enterprise grade platform. If you are SMB, I'm not too sure why you would buy this, but this is really designed for the powerful B2B centric enterprises, especially in my mind, media and telco. That's where you are probably going to be requiring a lot more customizability. On that note, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our e-commerce series for which we meet each Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks all.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Robert Brown, head over to rgbecommerce.com. It's rgbecommerce.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Jay Schneider, who shares his insights into how B2B digital commerce processes differ from B2C. Also, the interview with Noemi Kiss, who shares her insights into how the water industry works and how its sales cycle differs from other industries. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.